Let's unravel Geeta's world. Hello and welcome. This is the 113th episode of Geeta's World, and this festive season is approaching, Geeta. I'm sure you must be excited. I saw a lot of many pictures of your Christmas
Yes,
tree with books.
they yes. So every year we do a Christmas tree, which is eco-friendly, sustainable. We've done it with crates, with paper.
Wow.
We've done books before, but this time again it's books. There are only two important trees, as my
Mm,
father-in-law says:
mm,
tree of life and tree of knowledge.
very
So
true.
this year it is tree of knowledge.
Wow. That was so fascinating. And it was such a huge tree.
Yes.
It's not like a, see, you have quite a collection.
Oh yes, I have. That was just one fourth, maybe
Hope
of.
nobody stole from your
No,
tree.
no, no, no,
If I would
no
have been there, I would
stealing.
have probably just.
No stealing happening. You can borrow.
Yeah.
But
Okay. Yeah, but I mean, I
yeah, the
think,
season has begun. So a
yeah.
lot of get togethers, a lot of lunches,
Mm,
all of that is going to happen.
yes, definitely.
Mm.
But the news, of course, will still be pouring in.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and we'll be here on this podcast dissecting everything. And this time, we are touching upon one subject, one country, which I think has just been discussed once. That's what I realized. It was regarding the U.S. treaty between South Korea and U.S. To thwart North Korea's aggression, some nuclear program treaty that they had. So I just realized that we haven't, because I often do that. I often, refer to other episodes, previous
And
episodes,
then you had none.
and we had none. I was like, okay. So beyond, because here in the Indian landscape, South Korea is more about, cultural assimilation. We see
Or if there's
K-pop.
something big that happens in North Korea, which hasn't happened in
Yes,
a while,
yes. So South Korea is one
yeah.
such country which is like not much is known about their politics. So I really had like a tough time researching.
Did we not do the balloon war between North Korea and South Korea?
I don't think so. We
Where
didn't.
North Koreans were sending trash balloons.
Oh, we didn't. We didn't. We
And that
didn't.
was a fun story. We did it on India Today Global. You should
Oh,
watch it. It is a fun story. It continues every now and again. North Korea just sends
yeah, yeah.
air balloons with trash that goes and lands in South Korea. So poor people are cleaning.
Wow.
And trash means really dirty trash, okay? It's not just paper and things
Then
like that.
what is
Like
it?
really trash.
Oh,
Yeah.
oh man. Wow.
Yeah.
Yes, so I'll put that in the show notes, your video on India
Yeah.
Today Global. I'll do that. Right. So I'm sure, those who are worse with the facts of what's happening in South Korea must be knowing about this impeachment, which his president is facing. It's like his term is actually stuck in a limbo. The president is Yoon Suk Yeol, and he was impeached by the National Assembly, becoming the third South Korean president to face suspension through such a vote. Now, there are a lot many things I think it's better for Geeta to break down, because I'm sure there would be certain terms, like considering it's South Koreans follow a presidential form of government. Here it's parliamentary, so things would be different. There's a National Assembly which calls for the president's impeachment, and impeachment, I think South Korea, since it's it attained democracy, I think in 1987, they have faced a lot many impeachments. Also, that's what I read, that because they have just one 5-year term to serve, so they just want to give it all in. They can't be re-elected. So I'll get to all of that. But first, let's understand why are we seeing this kind of news pouring in. That these considering it's under a presidential form of government. So these powers that the president enjoys, they are checked by the National Assembly. And National Assembly consists of 300 members, right? So they are calling for, oh, wait. So on 3rd of December, it was the president's decision to declare martial law that plunged South Korea into political turmoil. Now, martial law is like, you're a democracy. How can you bring in a martial law? That's the first question. So, why, to understand this thing, I think, why did the president even think of imposing martial law in a country which upholds democratic values so dearly. So, why did it come in the first place?
See, if you're a leader who does not have the numbers, the requisite numbers in the National Assembly, and you want to function,
Mm.
and the biggest impediment is that there can be no forward movement because the National Assembly opposition lawmakers are not going to allow it to happen, then you either step down
Okay.
or you act in desperation, which is what I think President Yoon did. It was an act of desperation because imposition of martial law, his explanation was paralyzing the government, and which is why he needed to take control. And in order to take control, what does a martial law allow you to do?
Mm.
It allows you to take control of all agencies and suspends all kinds of rights in
Mm.
many ways than one, including right freedom of press.
Yeah. Okay.
So all rights are disbanded in practically, in all sectors and segments.
Mm.
And when you do that, you are ensuring that the opposition does not have the play that it has had in the recent past. So yes, he was having a difficult time, and yes, he still wanted to stay in power. And so he banned all political activity against him. But that did not go down too well, as we've seen, and we'll be discussing what really happened.
Mm.
The martial law was rejected
Yeah.
um, quite,
I think it just lasted 6 hours or 5, 6 hours,
yes,
and it was
yes.
retracted. Yeah.
It was rejected by quite, quite wholesomely by the people and the lawmakers, and he had to withdraw.
Mm.
He in a few hours time, or 6 hours if I'm not wrong, right?
Yeah.
He had to withdraw from his he had to withdraw his decision, and a rollback of a decision such as this only means political suicide. Furthermore,
Mhm.
the fact that you already did what was unthinkable, and there are reports that suggest that 3 months prior to the martial law, the opposition was saying that they're hearing rumors of President Yoon discussing martial law, and they had warned the government against such a move because that would lead to
Mm.
what it has led to today,
Yeah.
that he will be questioned and there will be an impeachment proceeding. Also, it's not like the United States of America where, the presidents don't get impeached.
Yeah.
It always gets rejected because they have the number somewhere. Over here, you have had cases of impeachment in the past as well.
Right.
And so President Yoon is in quite a bit of trouble because the first move of impeachment did go through
Mm.
in the parliament, where he was voted 204 to 85, 204 in favor of the impeachment.
Yeah.
But the proceedings are long and tedious, and we'll talk about that because it is going to move forward. Just because they have done it
Mm.
does not mean that the president stands impeached.
Yeah.
It just means it takes the entire process to the next step.
Which is the constitutional court step,
Absolutely.
right? So, why is it then several reports are saying that removing him from office will not be easy, considering he has been impeached? And in fact, those people who voted for his impeachment, many were from his own party. So, that is one another question which I'll ask you. But for now, why is it that removing him from office will not be easy? Because right now, what will happen that this will go to South Korea's constitutional court, which is the highest legal authority, and it has 180 days to deliver a final verdict, whether he stands impeached, whether he has to get removed from the office or not. And there's an article by The Economist which stated that the Constitutional Court requires 6 out of its 9 justices to agree to uphold an impeachment. But only 6 seats are filled because there were 3 justices who have retired now. And one of the sitting justices is a conservative appointee only of President Yoon, which means that it might influence the court's deliberations in
Why does
Yoon's
it sound
favor.
so familiar? We just discussed US and how the
Right.
courts and the appointments that Trump made just before leaving office is the reason why he could breathe a little easy during all of Biden
Mm.
administration.
Yeah.
And also taking control of the House was a huge thing, and now the Senate as well. So similarly over here,
Mm.
tough times for Yoon because he does not have control of the House,
Yeah.
and he certainly is going to get into a lot of trouble because of the actions that he's taken. And it also has gotten personal, Anna. It's not just about him, it's about the first lady as well.
Yeah.
So there is impeachment because
Mm.
of a massive error in judgment in imposition of the martial law, but it is followed by corruption scandals, cases against especially his wife.
Yeah.
And once his impeachment proceedings go through, we'll have to wait and see how they react to the first lady's case or the cases and the scandal of corruption revolving the first lady as well.
Mm.
So the family's in trouble. It's not just him.
Mm.
And I think President Yoon acted not just in
Mm.
desperation, but also in haste in terms of expediting things in a manner that he could continue to retain power.
Right.
And that hasn't worked for him.
Right.
So, yes, the matter in some time is going to be heard by the constitutional bench. And like you said,
Mm. They're
they'd
missing
require,
judges, so mm.
it will require time because the places have to, even if the places are filled,
Yeah.
Anna, there are those who are who have either been appointed by President Yoon or who might not really think um, that it was violative of the Constitution or rules and norms.
Yeah.
Um, he does have support there, and if that goes through, then he might not be impeached, or it'll be a tedious process. There have been instances in the past as well where either impeachment has gone through or it has not gone through, such as 2016 when Park Geun-hye was the first female president, was a leader, and sitting president was removed from office through impeachment and to serve 20 years in prison for corruption and abuse of power. Then you had Yoon, who survived impeachment in 2024.
Mm.
That's only because after months of deliberation, he went on to actually serve his entire 5 year term. So he was not impeached. For President Yoon, I think the situation is such where if he manages the judges, he might not get impeached. It might be
Mm.
difficult to impeach him. Will he serve his term? The only difference over here is that he might not be able to serve his entire term is because he does not have the numbers in the National Assembly.
Okay. Mm.
So he would require the numbers to stay in power. And I think most of them are very
Mm.
unhappy
Mm.
with what's happening and with where the party is headed. And that the party has lost face.
Right. Right.
So we'll have to wait and see how that really pans out for the
Mm.
current incumbent. um I would say, I mean, a lot of people are saying it's very difficult for him to be impeached. I'd hedge my bets. I'd say let's wait and see.
Right.
In politics you cannot say, oh,
Yeah.
he's not going to at all. You
Mm.
never know.
Mm.
Some, and we've seen that very close to home,
Mm.
where judges turn when they read the room and they think that he's not going to come back. Is there a reason to favor him?
Yeah.
What is the reason to favor him if he's not going to come back
Come
to
back.
power?
What are we getting?
So might as well be on hold a moral high ground and be on the right side of history rather than the wrong side of history. So you never know how these judges see. They would have considered
Mm.
being favorable should he have stood a chance.
Yeah.
At this point, it does not look like.
Mm.
And like you said, they still have to fill up the positions. And If they don't, the numbers will have to, you'll have to look at the numbers of the number of judges.
Yeah,
You'd
yeah.
require what, six?
Six. There are total.
Currently,
uh,
only six are there.
Yeah, no, they require 6 out of 9 judges to agree, and now only 6 seats are filled. Like,
That's what I'm saying. They require 6 out of 9, but
yeah,
right now only
only
six are
six
there,
are
and
there
three
vacant.
critical ones
Yeah.
are vacant. So let's see if the opposition and the government can come up with names,
Hmm. Okay.
and whether they will be able to give a verdict that's favorable to you.
Yeah.
And so while it seems like it's going to be tedious and it's going to be a long process, it's not an impossible one though.
Hmm.
Also, interestingly, if the Constitutional Court actually impeaches him, then
Yeah.
he will be the shortest serving president in the history of South Korea. And within a span of 60 days,
Huh.
the country will have to call for elections again.
Okay. Okay.
So, lots of
Hmm.
it's a historic moment in itself because you've not seen martial law
Hmm.
being
Yeah, that's true.
imposed. You've seen impeachments
Yeah,
on
several.
grounds of abuse of power,
Hmm.
corruption, so on and so forth, but not on grounds of being violative of the Constitution.
Right. And I'll ask you where, like, if he does get impeached, then who is the probable name
Hmm.
to likely to govern South Korea. But before that, there was one very striking factor that I noticed. Like, if you see what has happened in South Korea is majorly because President Yoon was frustrated, right, by what he called a parliamentary dictatorship, and there was a sizable opposition presence in the National Assembly, and he said that they were trying to paralyze his administration by trying to impeach top officials. And President Yoon would be the third president in as many decades to be impeached, and he would be the second one to be removed. So this sort of a track record is clearly worrying in a democratic country and bodes ill for the future as well. One would say that. But what was remarkable was that when push comes to shove, their judicial system, their opposition, their civil society, they have really protected democracy with all their might. In this case, even there were massive, massive protests, and people were camping out on the streets and biting cold, freezing cold. Even the opposition stormed the Senate. All of this happened, but there were no arrests. There was no like similar scenes we would be seeing here in India, but there would be massive frenzy.
There has been one arrest, at least, according to reports, the defense minister.
Yes,
But yeah, you're right
but
in
but
saying that no political arrests,
exactly not
detainees,
the
political detentions, civil society or civil rights activists detention, or
yeah,
even people for that
people
matter.
for that matter. That's the
Yeah.
main thing. But I just want to compare this with India in terms of our democratic political system, how it has held up spectacularly. Also because we have been a democracy since birth, right? So our citizens don't feel threatened this way, but then on the flip side, if you see, one can also say that they don't feel the need to protect it. The level of civil society engagement in democratic politics is really low here. Around the same time last year, if I remember, there were 146 MPs they who were suspended from parliament. And that was the ruling party's response to the opposition wanting a briefing on the security breach in parliament when two people had entered the parliament. They had set off, colored gas and shouted slogans. So how do you see this parallel? Like, do you think there's a reason to say that our people take democracy, for granted, and even when its health may be questioned, or when the circumstances merit like a more active civil society participation. So, how do you see the contrast?
Um, I think that they're two very different setups, firstly.
Okay.
Um, there are checks and balances in South Korea. We are a different kind of a setup. They're very different. If you look at their system, where a martial law that has been imposed, like if the same were over here in India, maybe there would have been protests in a certain time period of time,
Mm.
or maybe not. We don't know.
Yeah.
South Korea also has changed drastically. It has moved forward, although it's always been a democracy. How we withhold our democratic values is what it all comes down to, right? Over there is no impingement and no way of suffocating
Mm.
people by through power. Might happen, but I'm just saying that if you're aware of your rights, you know that you have recourse. Over here, we're a democracy.
Mm.
These things don't happen here. But we've had our own set of emergency imposed. What is
Of
a national
course.
emergency?
Mm.
If not martial law, what is an which is what they're calling it there? What's a national emergency here? We've had emergency imposed in India as well. It does the very same things that the martial law in South Korea does. There might not be a military takeover, but it still is one where you lose all rights, including freedom of press, speech, expression,
Mm.
in many ways than one. And so, while we are very dissimilar in our forms of democracy, we are still similar in a way that if the people stand up to the powers that be, they can shake the system.
Yeah.
They have done it in the past,
Right.
they've done it in the near past as well, and they will continue to do it in future as well.
Mm.
So, values, approach, the method of implementation, all that might differ, but I wouldn't say that we're a stronger, more, vibrant kind of a democracy. But because look at the checks and balances. The moment this happened, there was a massive revolt.
Yeah.
It was nipped in the bud.
Yeah.
And in fact, if anything, the one who imposed the martial law is the one right now who is being tried. I
Mhm.
don't know if that would be the case or would have been the case with us.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
So, Geeta, let's talk about the politics of the country. What I could gather is that mostly the South Koreans, their mandate has mostly oscillated between the liberals and the conservatives. Um, and they quite, give them time to rule for like or govern for 5 years. And I think after the next 5 years, they again, change between the liberal and the conservatives. So I wanted to understand, like, um, considering the fact that Yoon himself is quite an unpopular leader. I think his rating is like really, since he assumed power in 2022, his rating from 53% has dipped, like it continues to dip. So he has remained a very unpopular leader. In fact, his own party members, like I said, his own party members has have voted in support of his impeachment. But anyway, I was asking that if you try to understand what exactly is a liberal and what exactly is a conservative in South Korea, um, how would you explain that? Considering, like, what I know is that South Korean politics often mirrors public sentiment on big issues. First, North Korea, like the sentiment towards North Korea and how South Koreans, behave and project themselves, and also tackle their aggression. North Korea, the economy and corruption being the key issues, that base the politics and base the voter sentiment. But as a layperson, how I understand that the conservatives, they focus heavily on national security, military strength, and fostering economic growth. They're all about stability, order, and aligning closely with global powers like the US. And this is how they differ, that they take on like a military approach towards tackling North Korea's aggression. But on the other hand, if you see the liberals, they have like a peace building kind of an approach towards North Korea. Very conciliatory, and they emphasize on peace building, reducing social inequalities, pursuing a more diversified foreign policy. So now, if you think about the people's mandate, like I said, they alternate between the conservatives, between these two extremes. They give them a sizable chance to deliver on the promises, and if they don't fulfill, they are like, okay, now we would choose the other extreme. So if you think about this mandate in terms of, like, if we see it from the foreign policy kind of prism, so what do you think does this reveal about South Koreans choice as a society? Like, they are levying um, power in liberal and conservatives, giving them chances equally, considering in mind that they have like a difference in their approaches.
Sana, this is a very important question, and this will put in perspective what has happened in South Korean politics recently. So, in April, when parliamentary elections were held,
Yeah.
that's when President Yoon Suk Yeol lost control of the House. And when you lose
Oh,
control of the House
okay. Huh.
and you don't have lawmakers who can support your moves, and you have liberals who are considered liberals, and like you said,
Hmm.
um, have an approach um, that is not aligned with yours. And I'll explain that to you. Aligned with yours is when you start feeling really frustrated in how are you going to run the government,
Yeah.
which is what was happening for to President Yoon as well. But basically, the difference was that he was not in control, and conservatives are known to be absolutely anti North
North
Korea.
Korea.
It's the US South Korea alliance that is paramount to them. Therefore, the entire geopolitics of that region vis a vis North Korea and China, all of that changes. And while we were joking about it earlier about these trash balloons being sent by North Korea, somewhere down the line, I think there was
Hmm.
this, um, they felt more bolstered,
Okay.
and they got a boost from the elections that took place, which allowed liberals the space, who basically are looking to or have the idea of one day seeing North Koreans and South Koreans work together. Um,
Hmm.
there's an entire extreme front that also talks about unity, a united North Korea, South Korea again.
Yeah.
But that aside, the ones who think that they need to work with. So, in such a scenario, when you have a party of conservatives
Hmm.
not in control, with the liberals having much of say
Hmm.
in how the government should run, and your approach on foreign policy, especially vis-a-vis for them, North Korea is not just foreign policy. Foreign policy because it concerns their alliances with all other important players and stakeholders, particularly the United States of America. But it's a very domestic issue also because a lot of it has to do with the domestic. And this is only North Korea. On the economic front, also, very different approach. So, nothing in a way aligned between the liberals and the conservatives, which is why you're seeing what is happening today and why it is happening.
Yeah.
So a lot of it has to do with the fact that primarily since April, that they were having much little say in how to function and how to govern
Okay.
a country. Very important and very critical.
Mm-hmm.
And you're looking at an entire, you know, leadership
Hmm.
on the other side that was quite hell bent on ensuring that
Hmm.
they're not going to allow this government to function. We're not justifying what happened, what he
Of
did was
course.
right or wrong,
Yeah.
because it was not right. But if anyone, it should be the Americans who should be very worried,
Hmm.
or not, because Trump is going to take over on the 20th of Jan, and he said he's the one man who can actually speak to
Right.
and get through to um,
Hmm.
the North Korean supreme leader.
Mm-hmm.
So
Hmm.
uh, we'll have to wait and see how that really pans out.
Hmm.
It is not really bad for liberals to have a say, who are actually looking at maybe the US alignment will work.
Okay.
for South Korea, because should he not be in power,
Hmm.
then who next is going to be our question, whether if it's going to be from, uh,
There's this one opposition leader.
yeah, but
He,
from the main Democratic Party, yes.
yes. No, but there's one, yeah, I mean, one opposition leader called Lee Jae-myung.
Myung,
Yeah, he's the
Lee
probable
Jae-myung.
Lee Jae-myung. He is seen like a strong contender. And to just end this conversation on this note only, Geeta, that while I was reading, there were on this note that, he remains an unpopular leader. Also factoring in that during his term, the foreign policy of South Korea has actually taken a hit. There are
It
two.
has, but I don't know whether it's much to do with him or the timing of it and how the geopolitics played
Okay.
around the region. Yeah,
Oh,
but you say what you were saying.
yeah. So, like, if you, I mean, there are two parts to it. There are two sides to it. One side is that, yeah, because there's a military. Like, if you just factor in North Korea for South Korea, so his military kind of an approach has also like deepened regional tensions because North Korea has responded with like very like greater aggression, expanding its nuclear capabilities. In fact, also siding with Russia and helping Russia in the Ukraine by providing Russia ammunitions by North Korea. So, and North Korea has, under his leadership only, North Korea has called South Korea under Yoon as a primary foe. So, that is one part. But if you factor in Japan in this angle, so there's one person called one columnist, Geroid Reedy. He wrote for Deccan Herald that he said that according to him, the left in South Korea is anti-Japan and the conservatives is pro-Japan. Okay, and he says that Yoon was always more popular abroad than home. So if he talked about this entire camaraderie between Japan's former Prime Minister Fumio Kishida and US's Biden. So this entire trilateral kind of camaraderie that three of them enjoy, if Yoon goes, that will take a hit. So one thing is that, and he says that if this opposition leader Lee Jae-myung, who is being seen as a strong contender, if he comes in with that anti-Japan sentiment. So,
Because South Koreans have suffered at the hands of Japan,
right,
and
the
so that
colonial rule.
historical, yeah,
Hmm.
the historical wrongs and what the distrust and the mistrust has not completely gone. So yes, the
That is what the
Liberal
left.
Front remembers all of that.
Hmm.
Um, Conservatives, I think, are more, they're leveraging, they're also looking at transactional value of having Japan on their side, especially because their biggest ally is the United States of America, and the United States of America wants to ensure that the brokered peace between Japan and South Korea remains intact.
Okay. Hmm.
And because otherwise your Indo-Pacific strategy will fall flat
Hmm.
if these countries don't align themselves.
Right.
So they are a major part of all that conversation because US is involved,
Yeah.
because US is a stakeholder.
Hmm.
But again, there is Lee Ji-myung, who is, they're saying, the
And
next candidate for presidency, or for to become the president of South Korea. He is from the opposition Democratic Party. He comes from very humble beginnings. He's had a very difficult,
hmm.
struggle, and yet he's made it big. He did lose with a very small margin in 2022 to
Right.
President Yoon.
0.7%, I think.
Yes, very narrow margin.
Hmm.
But he also has scandals.
Hmm.
He also has problems of corruption, uh, primarily to do with the charges of election fraud.
Okay.
So that will not go down well, you
Hmm.
know. Um, but there are also two more candidates, according to some reports, from the People Power Party, that is Yoon's party, who could contend, which is party leader Han Dong-hoon and Seoul Mayor Ho Si-hoon.
Hmm.
So they are potential contenders. These guys don't have the numbers, but they won the election, right?
Yeah.
So if these two become, you'll see continuum in the South Korean policy. towards North Korea, especially aligning themselves with the United States of America. Should we look at Lee Jae-myung coming to power, then you will see an alignment of the sort that maybe uh, if Trump wants to talk to DPRK
Yeah.
and Kim Jong Un, then maybe an alignment that will be more akin to or amenable to Washington DC.
Hmm. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. That is interesting. I mean, kind of like to. So basically, what you're saying is that with Yoon in power, foreign politics, I mean, diplomacy did take a hit. But with the opposition leader, Lee Jae-myung, coming in, this would actually favor the US, but it will still keep the um, Japan, n-
US, South Korea.
Japan, US, South Korea intact,
Yeah.
right?
Because they're absolutely anti North Korea,
Oh,
which is what US is.
okay.
But if the continuum happens,
Hmm.
then, or if the opposition Democratic Party comes to power, maybe their idea of talking to North Korea will work with Trump's policy of engaging North Korea.
Okay.
So let's see how it plays out
Hmm.
either way.
Right. Yeah, I think we'll put an end on that note. Thank you so much, Geeta, for I mean it's slightly tricky to for somebody like me who is for the first time, trying to understand an alien country. But
Politics of an alien country.
politics of an alien country, of course. But I think there would be definitely very many articles and videos and documentaries. There's one by Frontline which were talking about adoption reckoning, which I
Hmm.
think adoption is one thing that South Korea, tackles with. So I think you should, as listeners and viewers, you should definitely take a look and try to understand the cultural assimilation and everything that South Korea upholds. So thank you so much, and thank you to all our listeners and viewers. If you stay till the end, let us know what you thought about the episode, and also comment. Send in your suggestions of to as to what other country or what other topic you would like us to explore. So we would definitely do that. There's a number which is 8588 966 996, or you could also email us on pods@indiatoday.com.
Thank you
Thank
so much for watching, and we look forward to all your feedback. Thank you.